are officially
What's up?
live. What is going on, everybody?
What's going on?
Recovery
Oh,
Revolution
yeah.
live Thursday night. Welcome,
The place to
everybody.
be.
I'm excited for this episode. I don't know about you guys, but I'm excited. We were
I'm
chatting a
excited.
little bit before we went live, and you guys, this is gonna be a good one.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
we're like, stop. We gotta
Hold
save
on,
it for
save it, save it,
the
save it for the
Yeah.
show.
Save it for the show. I'm
That-
grateful to be here.
Yeah, grateful
Glad
to have you, man.
back, LC. Well, I say back. It's your first time on here, but it's back together.
Right.
Yeah.
Back together again. Well, it's an honor for me to be here. I'm so grateful to. I'll sit
Too
in
bad
y'all's
you
hot
couldn't play
seat.
that song Reunited, and it feels so
I
good.
know. It does.
the same thing as their the music doesn't match.
Can't do it.
Billy, what's up, Billy? Welcome,
Hey,
welcome.
Billy.
Well, I better put my comments up so I can see. Maybe I'll get to see. Yeah, I get to see Billy. Haven't done
Yeah.
StreamYard from this side like this before. This is a really neat experience.
It's weird, right? You don't have all the buttons and stuff.
I know, like I feel like I should be doing something right now, but you're in control. This is gonna spoil me. I'm telling you, I've been saying I needed a Brett for a long time, and this is gonna spoil me a little bit. This is gonna be it.
Everybody needs a Brett.
They do. They do. They do.
Thanks,
Agreed.
guys.
Wow.
Yeah.
What are we going to talk about?
What do we do? How do we do this?
Well, I mean, there might be a few people watching that don't know who you are, LC. So maybe you can kind
Uh-oh.
of give us a little rundown on who you are, and then I'm sure we'll get to the conversation we were having before.
I think we got to. If
I
we talk
agree.
about me, then we have to. It's what
Oh,
it ended up being.
Yeah, and
Yes.
if anybody's watching, we're going to put the call-in number up here in a little bit. So if you have any questions or you want to talk about anything, feel free to call into the show live.
Yeah, I think that's such a neat part. Like, I think that that's so awesome, and it's great to get somebody's feedback on this. And we're going to talk about some cool stuff tonight, and I think there's a lot to say about it. So I really hope people will take that opportunity to call in and share. So, well, I guess I'll just bust into it then. So, my
Bust it
name
up.
is LC. Well, my name is Lona Currie, and I am known as Reverend LC. I have a Recovery Soulfood podcast. I am also the creator of Hope and Recovery Network, which is a page that I started on Facebook. Oh, wow, I guess in 2017 or something like that. So I'm coming up on 10 years in recovery, but I had this wildly hellish addiction for 22 years of my life. You know, just growing up at 4, I knew I was different. At 5, I had started with child abuse, like sexual abuse and, a lot of different things. My mom was young. She was running through marriages and she just didn't. We always said she had a broken picker. She didn't know how to pick, decent people to be with. So unfortunately, a little while later, my sister came along, and so we kind of got the brunt of that. But what basically ended up getting me was I tried alcohol when I was 11. I had met my real father when I was 8. I really wanted to be seen by him and loved by him, and so we shared music in common, and I quickly found out that we shared drinking in common too. So, I started out with drinking and no, as soon as that escape button, like as soon as the alcohol hit, I was hooked. It was ridiculous how hooked I was at 11 years old, that there was an escape button within substance. And, it went on progressively until I got to, I'd say, like mid-90s. In 1994, I had a major stomach surgery. And from there was, pain medications that were prescribed. And I really didn't have a clue that you could take them for fun or not take them, just for pain. But something was happening whenever I was taking those meds. And it just seemed like for the first time in my life, it was like a warm hug. It was like everything's okay here. And it was the 90s, and, pain pills were easy to get in the 90s. And I was going through more heartbreaks and heartache, being confused about who I was. And I carried just a lot of pain and anger because of my past and my childhood. Like I felt like and believed with everything that I was God's little joke. Like, why would you create a human being, like me? And why then would all this, just any person that could abuse me, it was like, they would seek me out. And that was my belief system for so long. And what started happening is I'd run out of the medicine and then I'd be sick. But I didn't have any clue that I was sick because the medicine was gone. So I would go to the doctor and say, I'm having these crazy stomach problems, my bones are aching, and they would prescribe me more. And it became pretty apparent when, I was hoping to get hurt. So, like, this is an honest program, so let me just be honest. I was hoping to get hurt, just so that I could get more pain pills. And, like, if I broke a tooth or whatever it was, like, if there was an opportunity, like, I'd go get a tooth pulled out. You know what I mean? Like, there was no trying to save it. Let's do the most drastic possible thing. And because of that first stomach surgery, I ended up having like multiple stomach surgeries. And so I honestly became even more addicted to IV pain meds. And so it was like I would do the most drastic things to be able to go to the hospital. It was like I was pushing death, but I was still so confused because I had never really heard the word addiction. Nobody ever explained any of this to me. I just knew that this was the answer to the only way I could live in my skin comfortable, and that this was happiness within a bottle. And that was what it was for me. And of course, at some point, like most of the time it does, the pills run out, the doctors realize that this is what's happening, and instead of telling me, hey, we think you have an addiction problem, and telling me what addiction was, and it sounds so ridiculous, to say I didn't know what addiction was, but I had just not ever heard the word. I thought of addiction as, down and out on the street or something, which eventually I'd get to because I was following that model. But, it just seemed like, the medical community completely turned against me. Like, they just turned their back on me and all of a sudden just treated me like garbage. And I didn't really know what was happening. And so, of course, my life was falling apart. I ended up having like 12 stomach surgeries altogether. I've almost lost my life, in behind complications from these surgeries. I've probably had 12 orthopedic surgeries. Like it was such a hard life. And then, of course, once the medical community turns against you, then I went to the street. I discovered heroin, and I thought, cheaper. I don't have to deal with, anything. I don't have to hurt anything. I don't have to do any of those desperate things. And it just quickly just became, the only way that I could just cope with being in my skin. And so, I fast forward, and I also, and this is going to be an interesting topic for us to talk about tonight, I also discovered within that addiction, I did discover MAT. And now, because I didn't know anything about addiction, and I had only been told that this was treatment, it was still back in the later 90s, and of course, at the time, we didn't have the Suboxone or Subutex. It was just methadone. And at that time, that hit the same. And I thought, oh, this is treatment. This is great. This is the best form of treatment ever, you know? But I wasn't fixing anything. Like, I wasn't doing I didn't think you had to. I thought the medicine was supposed to do the trick, and I was, just upping the dose and upping the dose, and there was, people just were willing to do it. And like, my relationships were falling apart. Everything was falling apart because now I was chasing this. But so there would be times when I would come on and off of that. But there was a time, and we have to fast forward because I really want to get to this topic more than I want to talk so much about me, but I guess this will lead into it. But there was a time when I went to a next level with medication assisted treatment. By the time I met my wife and she came with a 4-year-old son, they had given me a reason to live. They had given me something that was bigger than myself. I wanted to take care of them. And I knew that, I was wilding out. I had begun using, I'd been arrested, of course, and all the things that we do. And I had begun using a lot of speed, and I had become a speed addict and an alcoholic, because I wasn't working on anything. I wasn't working on this, and I wasn't working on this. I was just trying to stay away from drug of choice.
Well, right.
And
you're like, I'm not doing heroin, so
right.
I'm being good, right?
right. This is okay because I'm not doing that. So I made that excuse. But I knew that, at some point I was going to come back around to that. So I needed some type of stability. And so I went back to a medication-assisted treatment program. And at this point, I had used it differently, and I had let it just help me put my life back together. So I was working a full-time job, I was running a business, I was being a father, I was being a husband. We had things, and that was really good. Like, I figured out, I've conquered this. Like, I've conquered this. This is an okay life. But the problem was, I was still trusting only the medicine. You know what I mean? I still wasn't working on my head and my heart. And so because of stigma surrounding that, and my family members going, people saying, well, you're not really clean, you're not really this, even though I was living, a really productive lifestyle. I was really proud of myself. And I was really proud of myself. People, in my family, well, I can't wait till you get off of that stuff and this and that. And, so because of that, and I was going to a program that, wasn't really concerned. So it was, if you don't have your money today, you don't get medicated. So it kind of left me in that same situation. I got to do the same of this. I got to do the same things, break the law and all that to do this as I did for that. And so I walked away. So I made myself this plan. I'm going to, bring myself down. I was going to do all that. And I did. And about 6 months after, I made it for about 6 months. I was just the same raw sore of emotion walking around. Like I said, I had not worked on anything inside. I had not worked, I'd not done any inner work. My family broke apart. And about 6 months after, I started I was hanging out dangerously close to, heroin users, and, I was there. I was back at it. And that would end up being the 9-month relapse that changed my entire life. I was way off the rails. It was heroin. It was, I had no veins left. So I was mainlining, stuff I was buying off the street from people I didn't know. I was, all of this stuff. I mean, it was completely out of control. We were having to live with family. Our son was having these health problems. He didn't see us using, but kids know, like the stress that was around us. We have to go somewhere in the middle of the night. My wife and I, because my wife went with me in this relapse. She'd never tried heroin, and she followed me into this relapse. And so he developed this condition called Cushing's disease. And it was an overproduction of the stress hormone cortisol. and he was right at 14, and he had gained like 100 pounds really quick. And I started seeing that, number one, we can't keep going like this. Like I need my family. I got to do something. I had been 22 years running after this same demon, this same disease. And I was tired, and I knew something had to change. But when I saw that in my son, and I realized that he was suffering because of this energy that belonged to me, it was like all of a sudden I thought, I can't let my shit, affect him. And that was the night. So I'd made a decision that I knew that I needed to go back to MAT, because I had just laid there and I had already come off of trying to just do the body, the head, and the heart all at once. So I knew in that moment that I was either going to pack my bags and leave in the middle of the night and leave my family and just go live this out in the streets for as long as I could stay alive, or I was going to figure this out. So my plan was, okay, well, I know that I need to get my body under control, because if I'm fighting my body, my heart, and my mind, I'm not going to make it. I've done this too many times. So I'm going to go and I'm going to pick a program that had rules, a program, I picked the program that everybody in town said, don't go there, they're strict. So I picked that program, and I knew that, I made a deal with myself. I said, well, okay, I'll only go to this milligram. I just need the body to, get evened out so that I can work on my head and my heart. And that's exactly what I did. I just dove into the trauma. I dove into my own thinking, because I had to realize at some point that my own thinking was what kept keeping me suffering. I couldn't let go of, number one, I had no self-acceptance. I couldn't let go of the past. I couldn't forgive, the people in my life that I felt like were supposed to protect me and ended up putting me in harm's way. There was just all of that thinking. I was living under the influence of this story that I was telling myself of being a victim. And that's what kept showing up in my life. So I dove in. I made that program help me. I went from counselor to counselor to counselor until I found one that would help me. It was almost like, I think, I'm not religious, but I think about this passage in the Bible where the story is that this one character is going to hold on to the leg of the angel, and I'm not going to let go till you bless me. That was how I was when I went into this program. It's like, I'm not leaving here until somebody helps me heal. Like, I need healing, because if I'm just going to try to do clean and sober, it's not going to work. I'm not going to be the same miserable, angry, intensely angry human being and not have my coping skill. I can't do this. So I gotta heal.
So you went after it the same way that you went after your dope.
Bro, I went so after it. It was just crazy. I had two rules for myself. I said, number one, anything that I think to do, I'm going to do the exact opposite. This was early in the program, so I was like, my best thinking got me here, so whatever I think I should do right now, I'm just going to do the complete opposite and not ask a question. And I'm going to get so brutally honest with not only myself, but every human being that I come in contact with, that I may hurt some feelings, I may step on some toes, I may let some stuff fly out of my mouth in my history that maybe I didn't mean to say, but I'm going to get so dadgum honest that, because we know that, like, all the hiding my identity, like my gender and all of that stuff, like hiding all of that had kept me in the dark for so long, and I flipped on the light, and that was that. Honesty.
I have two questions
Get it to me.
before we get, further. So we hear this a lot of times: sober, clean.
Yeah.
Whoever said what is the definition of sober? What's the definition of
Mm,
clean? Are you clean when you get out of the shower? Like, but you're really not. You have bacteria on your skin all the time.
correct.
Um,
Yeah.
like, I mean, I'm looking like up, because I'm a person that looks at, the dictionary. So I'm looking, what's the definition of sober? And it's not intoxicated, abstaining from drinking alcohol or taking intoxicating drugs, refraining from the use of addictive substances, sparing in the use of food and drink, marked by sedative or gravely or earnestly thoughtful character, demeanor, unhurried, who said, like, what is that even? And who said you had to be whatever this is that we can't even define as
Yeah.
thing? Like, there's
Yeah.
so that's my first step, and that's first question is, who
Yeah.
told you that you would be healthier if you were sober?
Right, right. And well that leads into, often, that was the language that was always thrown around, and I never really understood how dangerous subconsciously that language was within me. Because and I think it's in a lot of us, and we don't even realize it, especially at my age, been going through this for so long. That was all you heard, and to the point that, so if I'm not clean, then I'm dirty. And I think what that ends up doing is, when we feel that way and we feel shameful, we manifest that life within us. We put ourselves in situations that reiterate that fact to us. Well, I'm dirty. This is all I'm worth. I'm going to live on the street. Like, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to go for it. Because that's as good as it gets for me. And I love that the language and those subconscious ideas are changing, and I love that. But also, recovery for me started before substance stopped. I don't believe that you have to not be intoxicated for recovery to start, because all action starts with a thought. And I mean, I had just walked out of jail that night, and my wife had just mainline shot me in the neck, and I was standing there, and when that feeling hit me, I thought, okay, this is what I'm going to sacrifice it. This is what I'm sacrificing my son's health for. I didn't even care about myself at that time. I really didn't, but I cared about my son. And that's what I was going to sacrifice it for. So that's when recovery started for me. So, I love that you bring up those things, and because we don't realize how deep those roots go, those subconscious roots go. And that's been the language for so many years, that sometimes, it's hard to even see what it does to us as human beings.
Right.
So, great point. Great point, Ashley.
And there's multiple pathways, like
Oh gosh, yeah.
you can work an abstinence-based program, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I'm not saying abstinence-based is the wrong way to go, and I'm
Right.
not saying that another way is the right way. I'm just saying that those terms are very, very damaging, and I know
They
it's a
are.
celebratory thing for a lot of people, but those terms are killing people.
They are. They are. They are. They kept me really damaged for a very long, long time. I when you don't think that you deserve more in your life, you don't look for more. And at a certain point, I had just figured there was no saving me. Like, I was living under the influence of an identity, and that identity was addict. Fuck up. It was all of those things. Dirty human being, and for what we do, in the recovery community, my belief is that it's a blessing for so many different programs. If we walk together through this, it's an amazing moment, and we have to change it within us in order to change it within, because the general public that has these are words that they've heard as well, and these are ideas and thoughts that they have. I mean, I know I'm probably not the only one that's been stepped over in the street, or called names and different things, and those things just reiterate that belief system, and
Well,
that's what
right.
we
And
look
then the
to influence.
self-talk, is so horrible, that it's like a super hard habit to break. And there's a lot to be said about the power of positive thinking and the
Yes.
power of positive affirmations and like thought stopping and just like reversing your language. Like you could say, "Oh, you dumb fuck," to yourself, and then be like, "No, I'm not dumb." Like, say
Yeah.
it out loud. It might sound silly, but really, if you make a habit of doing that, you can actually change the way your brain responds to stuff like
Yeah.
that. It
Yeah.
works,
It does, without a doubt. I mean, we're all sitting here living proof of that. I started talking those because everything we say is an affirmation. So when people talk about, well, positive affirmations don't work. Well, they do. They just don't feel right because we've been negatively affirming ourselves for
Exactly.
so long, and that's where our life is. We can look around and see what we've affirmed, and that's what's
Yeah.
happening. And
And that's
so
just like
we got to
everything
change
in
it.
recovery, dude. Like everything in recovery, especially early recovery, feels so foreign
Oh
and it
yeah.
doesn't make any sense to you. You're like, hell no, when people give you these suggestions. But when you start to follow some suggestions, despite the fact that you don't know, you're going to take actions that you don't believe in and you're going to get results that you can't deny.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Period.
Well, I have a second question. And so when you said when you went back and you got on, you got on that again and you addressed your trauma, was that the first time you'd ever addressed your trauma in your journey?
It was not the first time that I had talked to anyone, but yes, it was the first time that I tried to go to the roots. I had done a lot of surface talking. I'd been in therapy since I was 15. My parents started kind of putting me away places. And so I got pretty accustomed to, the field of psychiatry, but I had never gone to the root of those things. So it was easy to stay on the surface, talk about what was happening. So yes, that was the first time that I asked for help. I didn't want don't just sit and listen to me talk. Like, what do I do here? And I wasn't just utilizing the program. I was also, man, I was studying, I was reading. I mean, I had listened to this free webinar by Bob Proctor, and that was the first time I'd ever heard about Your Thoughts Create Your Life. It was the only time I'd ever heard about positive thinking and affirmations, and it was the first time I'd ever heard about the laws of the universe. And all of them, all those 12 laws that he talked about made sense. The law of cause and effect. I could understand that. Like, I could get that. And affirming and just how. And it was the first time I had learned anything about the conscious mind versus the subconscious mind. I'd always only ever been identified with my thinking. And oh my gosh, the master's
What's
here.
going on?
The master's here.
Another
up,
country heard
JR?
from.
What's up?
What's
What's up,
up?
bro?
What's going on?
Not much.
How are
Costa
you,
Rica
man?
in the house.
I wish
Costa
I'd known you were
Rica.
on tonight, man.
Well, I'm glad you're here. I was wondering if you were going to be able to show up, man. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, we had a trip out to the beach today, and we got back a little late. It
Look
was
at him all tan.
rough
Yeah.
work day.
He's all bronze and such. Costa Rica, well, it's good to see your face, man.
Yeah, it's
Good
good
to
to
see
see
you.
y'all, man. I know it's been too long.
Absolutely.
I know AG and Brett don't return my phone calls anymore.
You did return your phone call. Like
That's
4
a
minutes
lie.
after you called me, and it was like a busy signal, then cut off. It was like the weirdest thing. So then I sent you a text, and then you didn't respond for a while.
Uh-oh.
We got
I would call you back.
Jason never calls me.
I would call you back.
He said, "I'll call you back."
I sometimes call him
Yeah,
back.
if you called me, then I'd call you back.
Oh, you're saying the phone works both ways, right? Two ways.
Oh, I'll call you now. You're getting phone calls now, buddy. I didn't know you wanted them.
Oh,
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Now we're getting to the root.
ask for what you want, I guess is what Jason's saying.
Closed
I'll
mouths don't
call
get
you.
fed, but now you said something, so I'm
Uh-oh.
calling you.
Mm-hmm.
So what's
Jason,
Jason will
going
have to
on?
put you in the
What's going on
rotation.
tonight?
What's that, buddy?
So what's going on tonight? What y'all talking about?
Oh, listening to LC's story, man.
Ashley's got some amazing questions. I love Ashley's questions. So Ashley was just asking me a question about addressing trauma in my recovery journey, and asked me if that was the first time that I'd addressed it in this time, and the answer is absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, because I knew I had to get to the root of it, because, if I didn't get to the root of it, I didn't want to just be constantly looking over my shoulder for relapse. That was the real
Absolutely.
deal.
Yeah,
I didn't want to just
absolutely.
be always one little half step away from relapse, because I had been through that so many times. It just took, like, I'd be going along, everything's good, life happens, and boom, I can't handle life. I can't, I had trained myself to believe that I couldn't handle hard things. And, now I had a son, I had a wife, it was responsibility and accountability for me that really helped me, keep going through this, because I created my own program. You know what I mean? Like, I listened to so much about the mind. I learned so much about roots and trauma. I started learning about trauma in the body. I started learning about the processes of the brain and all the stuff that I had blamed myself for in that self-talk about, how I couldn't stay at it for longer than this amount of time. And that was all that the brain processing out, chemical and doing a reset. And,
Right.
I didn't know all that. And it was amazing learning that, because it meant that for the first time I said, oh my gosh, so this isn't just all my fault. Like, I'm just not a loser. I'm not a terrible person. This is part of this is like chemical, and part of this is something else, and part of this is old thinking. And so there are ways that I can change this. And that was the first time I think I realized there was hope for me. And every day I just got up until I could push through it for myself. I pushed through it for my son. So, 3 months in, the program that I chose actually had a housing program. So we were in our own house, and I really overloaded myself. To be totally and completely transparent, I probably, looking back on it, overloaded myself
Right.
in a very early stage. But at the same time, that was also what really kept me pushing through. And I was still a big angry mess. Like, I was still this, like raw nerve walking around. But I was learning, and I started a gratitude practice. And that really changed my life, because it started changing my perception. And when we talk about, our life is a direct result, we're watching it through the lens of our perception. And when I started learning about that and gratitude, and little by little things just started changing, I had hope. Hope for the first time in my life ever.
Amen.
Yeah. It was
Hope's
huge.
where it's at, man.
Yes,
Big
it
shout-
is.
Hey, big shout out. I got you guys on our big screen TV here at Costa Rica Recovery.
Oh,
Wow.
nice.
Wow.
Famous.
Hi.
That's what's up. How is the
Costa
how is
Rica
the
recovery.
job going?
I love it, man. I love it,
That's
dude.
great.
I love it. I mean, it doesn't even feel like a job.
Wow.
It's awesome.
Wow.
Days are
Oh.
rougher than others, especially the beach days,
Wasn't today your first beach day?
No, he's had a couple.
Oh, I thought he said it was his first one or something on Facebook this morning. Oh no, he just said beach day today, and it must be the first time
Yeah.
I've seen that.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
last time I came back red as a lobster. This time I put on some sunblock.
You're still a
Good
little
job,
bronze, man. You're still a little bronze. That's great. That's
Yeah.
great.
I
I
have a
love that.
question about the comment you made about life happens. And I think that's a thing we don't really address as much as we should in recovery, especially long-term recovery, because
Yeah.
when you first get into recovery, no matter what your pathway is, you know, the goal is to continue on your pathway or to better yourself. But, you know, substance use is a symptom, or it's a, you know, coping skill, however you want to look at. So if that's your scope, if I could speak, your coping skill, then when you end up having children and they're crying or they're sick and you don't know what to do, or you and your wife are fighting, or you and your husband are fighting, or you're having a hard time at work, or you just lost your job and you have to tell your significant other, or you're worried about losing your housing, or you lose a family member and you don't have your coping skill and you haven't made any new ones, what do you do?
Man,
What about
that
life on life's terms, Ashley? That's
Well,
like that's like a tenet of recovery, you know, that we learn these spiritual principles to live by, and that those are our new coping skills to learn to live life on life's terms. You know, where like to LC's point, you know, like when I lost my mom, that's something that I definitely would have defaulted to. I can't deal with this. I'm going to get fucked up. And it wasn't even on the table
right,
because of the work that I've done,
right.
you
You've
know,
made new
which,
coping skills and you've done the
yeah.
right,
work. What
right.
I'm saying is if you haven't and you've
Oh,
only, so that's what I'm saying. What do you do when that happens? And that's why we lose a lot of people in long-term
Yeah,
recovery, because life does happen.
it
And
does.
you have to know ways, you know, whether it be
Well,
mindfulness or, you know, however you address your own stress and figure it out.
yeah,
Like,
and one real big thing that happened, like in that my first year of recovery, is my wife had a full on
So,
relapse. Like m- my wife went completely back out, and I in that moment would normally have just followed her, but there was that situation. I had so much on the table and I wanted to do this for my son. Like I wanted to keep a roof over his head so bad, and I was so tired that I spent far too much time, Ashley, to be honest, just white knuckling through. And that was one of the reasons that by year 3 I began, Hope and Recovery Network, and started doing stuff online. It was because of those white knuckling times. So most of those times I'd go minute to minute, just reminding myself and talking to myself, and I would reach out. Like I would I'd call my program, I would call, my therapist, I'd call the counselor, I would do, and throughout that first year, there were times that I did cope. I did not, like, and once again, I didn't cope with that drug of choice, but I intoxicated myself with something that I knew wouldn't kill me. I don't know what is okay to say here, but I smoked a bit until I started realizing that the smoking was starting to take the place and it was becoming my go-to coping mechanism. And then I had to have a whole nother talk with myself. Because I started, that was, somebody in the comments said my drug of choice was more. That was my same situation as well, so I had to constantly be watching my own line. Like I had to walk this line, but I stopped beating myself up for, having those moments. I really did. And that took a lot because that was my default program, was to go back and say, see, I knew you couldn't do all that crap, that we say to ourselves. And that was my conversation for, gosh, I was 10 years. I was almost 40. I mean, like I was 37, coming into this. So that was my default program. And all of that little work, like with the gratitude practice, that instruction in that Bob Proctor video was to every day for the next 30 days straight write down 10 things you're grateful for. And that was like, I was like, what? And then he was like, well, if you can't do 10, write down 5. And I could only think of one. Now, I had the same wife, the same son, for whom I'm so grateful. We had a roof over our heads and all of that. But my default program was to only see the ways that I was failing them. So I
Yeah.
couldn't be grateful for them. And I don't even write. My gratitude practice has grown so much that I can't even remember what that one thing was. But I held on to that one thing like it was my lifeline and I did that. So what anything someone suggested to me during that time, I was hungry to build new coping skills, and I stopped listening to everything. So like I stopped listening to all my old music. I stopped driving. I used to call it my recovery battle plan. I'd take a different route to work. If I was really, really struggling, I would make sure that I didn't go through places that I had been through before. Like I just had to do everything opposite, and I had to have my why. And I think that, I don't count any of those things in that first year as like a relapse. I don't count any of that, man. I was healing, and I was working on healing myself. And that comes with scrapes and bruises. I got
Oh, yeah.
there through scrapes and bruises. So
Yeah.
I was healing wounds. And so I didn't I just got away from judging myself. And I just tried to build people around me. And it's hard in that new phase, because you feel like these trauma bonds to people. You feel these trauma bonds with these other human beings, or this specific lifestyle, and sometimes it's hard to remove yourself from that. And that was a big thing for me. Like I had to remove myself. And but just you know I did a whole lot of white knuckling, did a whole lot of reaching out, and I was trying to build new coping skills like my life depended on it, because it did. And when I wasn't perfect, which I don't think there is a perfect, if you're alive and healing, you're doing the damn thing. Like,
Mhm.
you're doing it. So celebrate and honor that. I started honoring the journey, celebrating the journey, you
Right.
know, stopped
It
regretting.
it reminds me of that saying, like you're right where you're supposed to be right now in
Mm,
this moment, right? Like
yeah.
it's a process, and it makes me think of that scripture, I will be a light that shines at your feet for each next step. And it's like
Oh, yeah.
everything's dark and you don't know which way you're going, but each next thing that you see in front of you, you just tackle that. You be mindful in the moment, focusing
Yeah.
on today and what can I do for my recovery today? What can I do? It's
Yeah.
so crazy because you might feel like you're spinning your wheels and you ain't getting anywhere, but then next thing you know, you look back and you're just like blown away. Like, look at how much I've
Yep.
accomplished or how much I've
Yeah.
changed. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And you start accomplishing like those little, like life does start happening. Even and it's almost like before you know it, like you're rolling with life. Like all of a sudden you're just not getting knocked off so quick, or you're not getting, so down. Like even if you change one word about yourself every day, like if you do that once, man, celebrate
mm,
that, because that means something. We create momentum when we celebrate. And sometimes, even in long recovery, we
yeah,
forget sometimes those basics to go back and celebrate. Sometimes I know for myself, I can only speak for me. Sometimes I take things for granted and I shouldn't, you know. I'm grateful to be in a place today that I can go with life and I can hit strides, and using is not my focus or my thought. I love what you said, Jason, about your mom, when your mom passed away, that wasn't on the table. I'm grateful for that. But
me
recovery
too.
to me has nothing to do even with substance. It's just a constant state of forward motion of just becoming your highest and best self, regardless of what the world says that is. Like, who's that for you? Like,
Right.
what's your divine being? What's
Well,
that
and then,
speaking to
you're
you?
going to work on one thing now, and then like in a little bit, that light is going to illuminate something else, as
Yeah.
we building self-awareness through the process.
Yes.
And So
Yes.
stuff will be on your radar that never would have been before because you've addressed some of that other stuff, and now you're like, oh geez, this is an issue. You know,
Yeah.
and there's always a new thing. There's always something to
Absolutely.
work on. Always.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've talked about that a couple times. With is Jason with you, like recovery whack-a-mole or whatever. Because it's like the
Yep.
more you fix, it's like the more that's there. It's just like a never-ending
Yeah.
thing, and
Yeah.
it's like, when am I going to be done? But you're never going to be done.
Right.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
I'm being humble, then I have that mentality. But if I'm thinking that I got it, and I'm good, and now I'm like looking down my nose at people, and I think I'm like the shit. No, man, no.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a bad place to be.
Yeah, and the thought process that we all that a lot of us seem to have, and this was a big thing for me, is changing the thought process that I'm not supposed to go through things. Like, I don't know where I had this fairy tale within me that, that I wasn't supposed to go through hard things. Like, I had this different picture of life, and I thought other people had it, and I didn't. So I really felt cursed. Like, it was a whole spiritual, it's been so much of everything that I had to really start looking into, like things like that. Like, I think it was Jonathan England that talked about the 87th problem or 88th problem, and which is, you think you're not supposed to have problems. That was a big thing for me, like, it's that 87th problem. Oh, you think you're not supposed to have problems. But I've learned to flip that around, in that that's what growth is. Like, we think we're somewhere until that place we think we're away from shows up, because you don't really know how much you've grown until you get hit with opposition. And you think, I'm over it, I got this, and then of course opposition comes, not so that you can say I failed, but so that you can go, oh, so here's the evidence of this work that I've done, and I've still got a little more work to do. So it's like, it was changing my whole narrative about, opposition. In every opposition is an opportunity for growth. And everything that I've been through, when my wife was in that relapse, then she was being overly medicated, which again happens to a lot of, I think, females coming into, especially, different situations. But instead of being in that place to do that inner work, she was very much over medicated because she was still feeling depressed. I think that comes with that, when you do have an addiction to pain medicine, it's all surrounding doctors and medical. So you're still in the mind where you trust the medicine more than the guidance. And so she kind of fell asleep. Not kinda, she fell asleep on our family for like the next 7 years. Like, it was just January 2020 that my wife had a small heart attack and woke up and has come back to be a part of our family. So there was nothing in my, recovery that was being easy.
Right.
And I couldn't separate what she was going through from how it was affecting me and our family and our son and all of those things, until I started I invested in some trauma coaching, some trauma mentoring. And that was like boot camp for trauma healing.
Yeah.
But when I turned the mirror back around on myself and just started working on me, and, letting her have her journey, and realizing that this was her journey and this is something she had to go through, and I got to work on me, like, why this is affecting me so much. What's the real root here? There's always a deeper question, and it always comes back home to us. That's when I could release her energy, and then, she could be able to work on herself, because I was holding all that hostage. Like, why can't you wake up for me? This is how this is affecting me. Me. It was such a selfish thing, but I didn't realize it was selfish. I thought that if I was worrying about her and I tried everything to try to wake her up, that's her journey. And that's hard to accept, in our lives, that as much as we have our journey, the people around us have theirs. Because I know a lot of times in new recovery, we want everyone to, fall in line because we know that this is it for us, or this is our time, and we want everybody to believe us, and we get mad when they don't. And I get that. I was there. Like, we get pissed off. But
Entitlement.
and yeah, very much so. But to just kind of relax and let, you got to let your life speak for you. You got to go on your journey and let other people have theirs. Let them have their trauma and heal. I had to realize her trauma wasn't about me. Like, she was not at the space where she could do her route. Now she's started now, but she's 5 years into recovery on MAT. Like,
Praise
when,
God.
thank God, exactly. Because any one of those days, I'd go to sleep every night just and say goodbye to her in my head in case I walked downstairs the next morning and found her no longer with us. And that was the normal of life for 7 years of making myself go to sleep knowing that she may die down there. And all by herself. And so, like, that there was nothing easy. But now what I know is that gave me such a perspective to relate to every man. So I can relate to the families of people that are going through this. I relate surely to those that are, within it and going through it. I get to relate so much, like I have no judgment within me. Like, how in the world can I judge anyone else or their path? Like, your path is your path, man. Just get healthy within you, like what that means to you. Because we don't have to suffer for suffering's sake. If there's something else and bigger about it, it seems to me, for me, it's a lot easier, so to speak, to move through it with purpose.
Right.
And when I
But
started
you were
sharing,
on one
that was it.
side and then you had to go through all of that on the side of being in recovery and watching the person you love the most going through that. Like, now you, just like in recovery, our lived experience is so valuable. That's why,
Mm,
your lived experience with that is equally valuable, for
yeah.
families.
Yeah, and I got to understand what my family went through. For the first
Oh,
time ever, I got to understand, and I knew that when I was sitting in it, when I was going through it. I was like, wow. Like,
that's
I
a bitter
never.
pill of truth
It
to swallow.
very much is. It
It's
very much is. It
yeah.
it was huge. It was huge. It's
And I
huge.
think so. The thing that is so hard about a lot of this stuff and with recovery is that you want them to find it so bad that sometimes it's hard to not control the situation and to let it go because you
Oh,
love the person. And I mean, I had an experience with someone, and it wasn't someone nearly as close as my significant other, but it was a friend, and they they utilized, I helped them a long time with their mat stuff and helping them pay for stuff, and they're like, if you stop helping me, I'm gonna need heroin today. And like, it kept me on this path of, and eventually, like Bridge said, I had to use boundaries because I didn't know if I was supporting
Yep.
what I was supporting at that time, and it was like, this is really not good for me. It's
Yep.
taking the money from my kids is not good to like give to. And so it was like, literally the last time I saw her, I told her I couldn't give her money, and I'd already, I told her I would go with her to her doctor's appointment. I'd pay for it there. I'd call over the phone and pay for it. Like, I just wouldn't give money. And it was literally like, it killed me walking away
Mhm.
because she was crying. Like, I felt like it was the last time I was ever going to see her, and I was going to be responsible if she had an overdose. And like, so the trauma that you know that holds, and like I said, this was someone that was not nearly as close to me as, like, I can't imagine going through that every day, and the trauma and the effects and how hard
Yeah.
That must have been
It
free.
it was literally like to come to that place where I I had to like release her energy, like I had to just release that and make the boundaries. I so my grandparents were my biggest enablers, and I drew on that experience. But you can only do it so much because you're right. You feel so much a push and pull, like you understand what it's like to be in that situation. I was so scared she was going to do something and get arrested and ruin her and go through the things I went through. But I also understood that, you know, I I made a promise to my grandfather on his within his dying breaths that I was going to figure out how to change my life and make something amazing of my life, and this was in 2008. I had no idea how I was going to do that, but that promise was a big catalyst to bring that to me. But I often said, my grandparents had to die in order for me to live because they were such enabling of me that as much as I wanted to stand on my own feet and get better, I could push the button too quick. Like I could tap quick and they would be right there. And
Right.
so I kind of drew on that experience. I never did things perfectly, but what's really even more hurtful is to know that our son is 23. He just turned 23 last week, and he is in a relationship with an older woman who has a very real, situation happening, and she's much older than he is. And I see from the outside, he's trying to save his mom through her. And I see so much of the manipulation happening, and I keep trying to tell him, like, she's not a bad human being. Like, you can't judge this is a disease that has taken over her life. And I tried to have that conversation with him the other night as much as he could understand, and remind him of some of the times that he watched between me and his mom. And I said, sometimes it takes more love to build a boundary
Yeah.
and not be the enabler. And his comment back to me after that long conversation was, yeah, but if I don't do this, because he goes out and works every day and he gives all the money to her, and they don't have things. I mean, like I said, you're living the lifestyle, you're just not getting, the reward at the end.
Right.
But I said to build this boundary. He says to me, well, then, she's going to get mad at me and say really hurtful things. And then she's going to tell everybody that I'm the asshole and everybody's going to turn against me. And I had to tell him, listen, man, a lot of people want her to stay the same. And the person that stands by her and doesn't keep giving into this thing is the person that shows love, and it doesn't matter what they think. Because I had to remind him, when I reached out to your mom's people, when we were at the worst of the worst, like I did not know what else to do, and I reached out to her people and nobody helped us. I said, but today she's healthier. We're both healthier, happier than ever. I said, and to this day, her people still blame me. I said, and ask me how many fucks I give, because that woman is still alive and I'm still walking by her and with her, and it's only because I set boundaries and I healed myself and I loved her, and I was willing to do the hard things because I had to. I had to give it a shot. I had to try this boundary thing. And so, it's hard to see what's going on. It's hard to sit back and not try to control the situation. But, I have to draw on those same experiences with her, which is we will not send him money. It's every other day because he's not taking care of any of his stuff. Everything goes to that, and I keep trying to make him understand this is what it's going to be, and that this this keeps going until nothing's left. That's the nature of the beast. So, you got to decide, man. You got to really decide. And so I've arranged help for her, and it's sitting there when she's ready. And I just keep trying to reiterate to him that I'm here to support you. You can talk to me. I don't think she's a bad person by any means. I can't. Like, I understand what
Right.
she's going through, and I understand that you love her, and sometimes we can't love people through things.
Mm.
And sometimes, we have to set a boundary and help them help them get themselves to a place where they want to get better. And sometimes, as we all know sitting here, that sometimes you got to reach your absolute groundbreaking bottom to get to a place where you're ready to stand up, you know? So, it's a hard situation on every end watching him go through that, but, we can't support it. Even if he calls me for money for oil for the car, it's like, I can't. My recovery tells me that I can't support another person's habit, even if it comes through buying oil for your car, because your money that you
Mm.
should have bought oil with went to that. So in essence, if I send you oil money, I'm still supporting that.
Right.
And so you got to understand that's my boundary. That's mine and your mom's boundary for our recovery. But, like we're here for you. We're here for her, and we've never met her, but we're here for her in whatever that she needs. So, it's hard though. It is
And what
hard.
a blessing, though, the path that you've had to walk has put you in a
Amen.
unique position where you can impart this wisdom into him. And hopefully it takes root soon, because he needs to see, that
Desperately.
sometimes helping isn't helping.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
just prolonging the inevitable,
It
or
is.
hurting them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I
Thanks,
hope that
Brett.
he understands. I hope that he really understands that, because, I tell him just back up from the situation and look,
Right.
when
He's
you
got to
first
see
met
it.
her. Yeah, when you first met her, she was moving around. Now she just doesn't get out of the bed. She's put on a lot of weight. She's unhappy with herself, for her own issues. It's like she's a hurting soul. And this is just kind of a temporary band-aid. And like what happens when her body says enough's enough. Like, it's like you just don't know what to say. And when it comes to your children, it's a fine line, because to me his drug of choice is saving her.
Uh,
So,
Codependency is a trap, dude.
it is.
And it's an
It
easy one to
is.
fall into,
Very
especially
much.
if the person can manipulate you into thinking it's why it's so important to like learn what's mine and what's not mine, right?
Mm. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
If you can make that distinction in your life, you're going to be better for it, because that's not mine, you know. And how dare you put that on me like it's my
Yeah.
responsibility,
Yeah. Yeah.
he at least at minimum should be able to make sure his priorities are met, and he's
Yeah.
meeting his real responsibilities before he's trying to meet the responsibilities of somebody else.
Right. 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 And that was my big program to him, was like, listen, why don't you just start with this boundary? Just go in and say, listen, I'm willing to take care of the bills. I'm willing to take care of the household. I'm willing to take care of the food in the house. But you have to get up and take care of that part for you. I said, start somewhere. I said, at least, I said, because if she never has to go out and go through the things, what's going to be the inspiration for her to pick her, life up and heal herself? If she's not ever going out and doing anything, it's just coming to her, you know, what's going to happen when, like I said, her body gives out and she didn't get her opportunity to have her awakening moment. I'm so grateful for my rock stinking bottom moments, every one of them, because there ain't been just one. There's been many. I'm so grateful for them. They got me here. It got me
Isn't
here.
isn't it amazing how when you are able to change the way you think from why did that happen to me, or what did I do to deserve this happening to me, or what the heck, why is this another crappy thing happening to me,
Yeah.
until you can turn it into, thank God I've been through that and I learned
Yes.
this so I can do this. Like,
Yeah.
It's a
I'm so
gift.
glad I learned that time. I would never have known that to know in this situation. Like, it's just, to
It's
me, that's
beautiful.
one of the coolest things, is being
Me
able to
too.
be grateful for some of the hardest times.
Is the
Yes.
true
Me too.
paradox of
It
recovery.
is. It is. It's
It'll flip
exciting.
everything upside down on its head, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. It's exciting to me. Like I
It
just
is.
I get so excited about, like going through things. And I know it sounds ridiculous and, but that's what it is because I set out to know the truth, know myself. I'd never known myself. Never at all. I had only known nothing but denial or pushing away the parts of me that the abused part, the confused part, the cutter, all of these things, I pushed all of that away from myself. This time of coming home to myself, and we can be completely clear. Like the first 1 and 2 years of the recovery process, it's okay that you're not there. Like there's a lot that's happening in that time, with the body and the brain and all of that stuff. I often sometimes, when I talk about it now, I don't want to alienate people who might be in their very first like moments of thinking about the healing process and have that self-talk of like, well, I'm not there, I'm not doing it right. No, like if you're moving, no matter how fast or what, if you're moving towards knowing yourself or being, the best version to you, not what somebody else says is your best version, but the version you feel like you're doing it and you're doing it. But it's an amazing place to be. You're right, Ashley. Great place to be.
I have a question for everybody, and we can
Mm,
like go through by the squares. So,
squares.
if somebody were to ask you, do you wish you had never suffered from addiction? Do you wish you never had to find recovery? What would you say? If
I
you
would
were,
say I'm so grateful.
no,
I'd say I'm grateful for every part of my journey.
so
Mhm.
Every
so
part.
you
I
wouldn't
wouldn't trade
trade
it. No, 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 no. I wouldn't trade it. Not one
Brett,
thing.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't trade it either.
Jason?
No, everything that I went through put me in a unique position to help somebody else. And I firmly believe that my, similar to LC's story, like my initial hunger for knowledge, for wisdom, for help, and trying all these different things, and it's like, and then having the blessing of being able to do things like this, with the podcasts and everything, is like I get to learn about all these different pathways to recovery and principles of recovery from all different walks of life. And and not only do I get to learn it, but now I'm providing like some concrete content that other people can watch or listen to, and they can learn about it too, because that that's true empowerment for me. Like I know that my trauma in my past has led me to, it's equipped me with
Mm,
this ability to
great word.
really help a lot of people who are struggling in a myriad of different ways, and that's so it's all been turned around, and so now it's working for good instead of tearing me apart anymore.
So I'll
Amazing.
say ditto to what you all said, but think about this. When we were going through it, like, I know for me personally, I hated myself. I thought I
Yeah.
was the lowest human being, but that person that I was made me the person that I am today. So I'm grateful for that person.
Yeah.
And
Mm,
so, like, if anyone's listening and you feel like you're the worst person in the world, or you don't think that you deserve anything, one day you're going to be grateful.
Yeah.
I hope one day you're going to be grateful, like us,
Yeah.
because you just heard 4 people that said that they wouldn't trade their worst times in to have a perfect life.
Mm.
Well, it's
And
funny how
and
many times I survived suicide attempts, and yet whenever I see somebody in that type of feeling and they're not expressing it, they're hiding, trying to hide it, and I recognize it and uh, am able to reach them as a result. I'm like, man, it's almost like it's a superpower. I'm so grateful for that, and I wouldn't have that without all that,
Mm.
you know.
yeah, and the thing I think about too is if I didn't go through what I went through and I didn't struggle with substances, would I have ever been in a place in my life where I then reflected on who I am and
Mm.
had to do that deep work, or would I have just stayed just kind of that surface level, just okay with who I was kind of person?
Hmm. Yes, I think about
Totally.
that often. Yeah.
It's quality, right? Like the quality of life is
Mm-hmm.
off the charts. Like
Yeah.
we can experience real things now. Joy, real
Yeah.
pride, you know,
Yeah.
real things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
Real
mean,
belonging.
I thought I knew what that stuff was before, but it was all fleeting, you know.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was temporary.
Yeah. Yeah.
What were you
Living
gonna
up
say,
to it.
Ash?
I said real belonging,
Amen.
Oh, what an
instead
amazing
of
word.
having to
Yes.
fit
Like
ourselves into
this
a
right
box
here.
or to, yeah, like we can be
And
ourselves and
purpose.
we can talk about it and we're accepted, and that's an amazing thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Amen.
And it's valuable. I think that, even where we are in society right now, that's, I will never stop saying that the recovery community is positioned to help society as a whole. And I really, it's why, the one thing that I do like struggle with as far as, anger goes, is I do get exceptionally angry sometimes when I see different conflicts happening within the recovery community that's judgment based. I'll never
Mm.
when I began my gender transition, I was already, doing live videos and had already built, a fairly decent platform. And I was talking to people about, you got to get to the root causes of, of this. You got to get to your roots. You got to get to your roots. So you heal that and you're not always running. And I couldn't be a hypocrite and then just go away and then just try to re-emerge. That's why I continued to share. And when I kept seeing people come at me with hate from the recovery community, like that hurt me more than
Mm.
just regular old hate. Like this was an extra level of hate because I thought,
Right.
how do we, with each and every one of us being compromised in situations that we would rather probably not tell anyone else or revisit in our minds, it's like, how do we then stand in judgment or hate of one another? And I think the work that I've had to do around that is when we hold hate, we are holding fear. We are afraid of being uncomfortable. And what I learned and what I have learned through all of this is that it's almost makes my heart more open for that person, because I think what you're resisting, when you resist something, that's change trying to come in. That's an opening of your whole heart trying to come in, and you're blocking it by doing that. So it's easy to spew hate at things we
Yeah.
don't understand, but that's what society does to us as people in recovery, or people in, active addiction. That's what they spew hate, because they're separated from it, and we can't afford to do that, because these are lives. We deal in lives, like we that's what we're dealing with. We're not just dealing with, surface stuff. We're dealing with lives. And too many people are losing theirs trying to medicate internal pain.
Mm-hmm.
And and society's throwing bombs at them everywhere, and that's up to us to change.
Yeah.
And we can do that, but we do that by supporting one another and loving one another and honoring each other's journey. Like I don't think that shade should be thrown in our community.
That reminds
Wishful
me of
thinking.
a saying where it says to look for the similarities, not the differences.
Better
You
believe it.
know, when you're fresh, when you're new, what do? You try to like disqualify yourself from the group. You try to like alienate yourself from the crowd because I'm not as bad as them over there, and I'm nothing like them over there, and I didn't do that stuff that those guys did, and blah blah blah. It's you're just cheating yourself, man. Focus, try to find the similarities rather than the
Mm,
differences. You know,
yeah.
it's supposed to
Yeah.
be a safe space, you know what I mean? An inclusive space where all
Yeah.
are welcome, you know, if you
Yeah.
identify or you have a desire to get better. And uh, there's too many people out there that are that way. You know, their minds snap shut at something they don't understand. And you know what's crazy, LC, is you be dropping some hardcore wisdom, bro, and they would look at you and just not even listen to a word that came out of your mouth, and you're probably spitting something that saved their damn life.
You hope. You hope. That's why I share so openly about it. It's not
Yeah,
comfortable to do. At any time, I don't have to talk about it or I don't even have to say it at this point, but it's like we're all, in all honesty, we're all going through transition. Gender transition is no different from the transition from, of healing within. It's just that you get to see my shadow work and, anyone else can just kind of hide theirs. And, that's what it is. Like when I see, like I don't. To me, when I see someone even just going through gender transition, because it's the easiest thing to see, I get inspired, and I do that because I think here's someone who is stepping straight through fear, who's taken in some days I take my life in my own hands, to just walk out and be who I am openly in public. Like these are things you might not every day have to think about. But if it's that important to me, like if I'm willing to do that, to know my true self, my own wholeness, and it goes much deeper than just, gender. It goes much deeper than that. It's a whole process. Like recovery is a whole process.
right.
If I'm willing to do that and I look at someone else who's willing to do that, that inspires me. And if we spent more time finding inspiration within each other, versus trying to find all the ways that I'm better than you or you're doing it better than me. There's inspiration in all of it. We're all valid in what we've gone through and what we have to share about and what we have to talk about and add. It's too
Amen.
And I
beautiful to.
think a big part of it too is, so you said you have, your one thing that still brings you mad and hate. My thing is I have two: hypocrites and the other thing is entitled assholes. So um, now when I'm gonna say like hypocritical, like we all want freedom. We all want to be able to, we live in the United States. We believe we should be free.
Yeah.
So if you're not hurting somebody else, what is it my business? Like, why am I looking at someone looking to tell them what to do when they're
Right.
not looking at me trying to like it's not hurting me. So
Right.
why would I be able to judge what you're going through or even want to have an opinion on it?
I
Like,
know.
and then like secrets, our secrets made us sick. Like
Oh my
we know that.
gosh.
So
Yep.
then you go to a meeting and a certain places it's like, well, I do this. Am I allowed to come here? Yeah, everybody does, but just don't talk about it. Don't tell anyone.
Mm-hmm.
You're
Mm.
literally telling someone to lie, which is secrets and shame are what
Yep.
made us sick.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
like, so
The problem hidden just perpetuates the problem.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
It shrinks in the light and it grows in the dark. I mean, that's a pretty
Yeah.
easy concept to understand, but only once you try, to take that risk and put it out there, you can experience that result. But until you experience it, you're like, nah. It's just easier to keep it hidden. It's just
Yeah.
easier to lie.
Easy. Easy. And you're right. And like we were talking about before, one of the big places that I find a lot of that is the whole argument surrounding medication assisted treatment.
Yeah, good
I hear
job. You
people.
brought it. You brought it.
That's and
Let's go there.
it's the perfect stigma. It's the perfect stigma around it is that don't be honest about what's helping you, and don't be honest. Don't tell anybody, and that's like again we all come to our moments, our awakening moments at different times. Maybe mine started happening in year 3, someone else's happens in year 20 or whatever, but the common denominator, like we said, is we got to be alive to come to the moment. So, for people to say, well, if somebody's on MAT, then they're not really in recovery, or this, that, and the other. Recovery is not substance based. Recovery is healing based to me. And so, again, we got things out right now. We're talking about dangerous levels of fentanyl right now. Dangerous levels. People are going one and done and they're not coming back. So why would we have this argument about and that comes from fear, like it comes from that I think, and I'd love to know what you think, Ashley, because you have some great insight on this, and all of you. I'll ask a square question, but I think sometimes it comes from that place of where you wanting to punch down on somebody else, when you want to be here so that you can feel important, and then punch down on something, and so that's sometimes like my perception of it is an identity of I'm better than you. I need to feel better than you so that I can feel something. I mean, what do y'all think it is? Any square?
I think you're exactly right. Most people that become bullies have been bullied.
Mm,
And when you are able to bully somebody else, it makes you feel good about yourself.
Hmm.
Oh, those people that bully others, it makes them feel like they have power or that they are over, it's they haven't done the work.
yeah.
They still need to be validated by being powerful or being on top. And there's no power in hurting somebody else. There's absolutely none.
No. No. Beautiful. Yep.
I think
So
they
good.
have an illusion of control. They
Mm,
think that if I can hurt them before they hurt me, then it's kind of a survival thing,
mm.
especially if they've been, bullied. And that's what made that flip happen where they were like, nope, never again. I'm not even going to give you the chance.
Yeah.
Never
Yeah.
going to let you
Yeah.
close enough. And I'm going to, yeah,
Well, I
Yeah.
think I think if I could speak candidly for a moment, because
do it.
yeah, because I mean I kind of had an issue with Matt in my early recovery,
Oh,
and
I
didn't
love him.
really understand it, and I think for me, part of the reason that I didn't agree with it is I saw it as an easier way. It's like, well, you still get to use a substance. Like,
Mm,
I had that mindset of like, why do you get to do that? But because I came from the, 12 step background, complete abstinence. That was kind of the mindset that was planted in me in early recovery. It was like, well, why do they still get to use? Why do they get this softer way? So I think that's where maybe some people come from, is looking at that as like, well, they're still using. Why do they get to do that and call themselves, why do they get to say they're in recovery?
All right,
I
so I'm
love
going to
that. I
stop
love
for
that you
a
said
second
that.
on what you said.
Love it.
Because were you ever mean or talk down or hurt somebody that was on Matt because of your beliefs?
Did I?
Yes.
No.
Okay. You can not believe in something and not bully somebody or cause
Right.
harm. You don't have to
Right.
believe
No, I agree.
So,
Beautiful
so,
point.
so what you just didn't have, you just weren't at the place you're at now and hadn't heard different, like that. There's nothing wrong with what
True.
not knowing. There's something wrong when you don't know and you pretend to know and you hurt somebody, or if you just intentionally hurt someone because you're mean. Like what we're talking about is somebody actually causing harm to somebody else. Because
But
so
I
I
am
want to clear that up, because I don't want people to think just because they're against something, but if you see somebody
great
being
point.
bullied and you sit there and don't do anything based on your beliefs, then you are part of the problem too. But if you just have a belief, you can have any belief you want. And just like I
Yeah.
said, if you're not hurting someone else, you're allowed to believe whatever you want.
This is
Well, and
such a
like
great conversation.
we should be able to have a conversation where we
Yes.
exchange ideas and that we can accept each other for where we're at, and we're not trying to bring them onto our side, just to to understand each other better. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you said that, Brent, and I I love that we're having this conversation because that was I was thinking in my head over another scenario, and I wonder if that's part of the thought process too, that someone says, well, that looks like an easier route, and that was, I love that you said that, and we can have that conversation because, see, to me, like Jason just said, it's a beautiful example of being able to sit in different places and be able to speak about something, and without it, because I can understand that belief system, but again, like you say, Ashley, it's like when we're hurting each other, and I guess what that was exactly where my mind was, because I went there, because I've heard that I've had people like bully me whenever that's why I got off of MAT in the beginning, in the first place, and ended up in the 9-month relapse, was
Just
because
to
of
try to get
that.
people to accept you.
Yeah, exactly. Just to try to belong in this. And I didn't honor my own journey or where I'd been. I kind of discounted that for approval.
And you
And that
probably
almost
really
killed
did
me.
yourself a lot of harm, you know, because believe it or not, you guys, some people need medication assisted treatments.
They do.
They need
They
it.
do. They do. Oh, hey, Pamela. Pamela's a beautiful and amazing human being.
Hi.
And there's
Oh,
a lot of medication. There's diabetics that need insulin. There's people who
yes.
need blood pressure medicine. Like you're not less than somebody in
Right.
abstinence because you need a medication to. If you're living
So true.
a productive, and productive is a really wide concept too. Like it doesn't
Yep.
have to mean you're a millionaire or anything like. If you are, you know, contributing to the community, you're not hurting the community. You're like then it doesn't, you're not less than because you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's almost like telling someone who takes an antidepressant that you're still depressed. Like, they're taking an antidepressant and they're doing their all this wellness stuff, and they say, I feel better than I've ever felt, and they're like, no, not really. You're still depressed. Because you're taking that antidepressant. So it's that. So, I think there's so many amazing points to it all. I just want people to live,
We do
Like,
that
I just
though.
want people to live.
We do that with
Yeah.
depression medicine is we tell them, oh, you've gained weight, even though it's a
Yes.
side effect of the medication and they're taking it to be
Yes.
happy. We
I've gained
say,
weight.
oh, they gained a lot of weight. Like, why do you need to open your mouth and tell someone they gained weight? Does that do
Right.
anything for anyone?
Right. 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 What an amazing conversation, because that's what was happening. My wife was, like, on it. She was ashamed to be on the medication, and then that ashamed led her to be on more medication, and she just wanted to feel better. And I can say that I didn't know how to handle this, and I did all the things I knew to do. So, like, I begged her, please stop taking the medicine, or please do something else. But then I was critical at times, like I didn't help her until I released her and let her be on her journey. But, I can say I contributed sometimes to that because, you know, I was trying to control the situation. And it's hard to admit that sometimes, but, you got to admit the hard stuff to be able to heal from it. And so, I was critical of her, and I added to that. And a lot of that same stuff happened, the side effects of the medicine, where that they caused her drowsiness. And we look at things like somebody can help that. And she couldn't help that. She was doing exactly what her doctor told her to take. Like, she wasn't taking extra medicine, she was taking it that way, and she was just believing that this was as good as it gets for her. When I started having compassion and trying to understand that this is the woman that I love the most in the world is hurting. Like, she's a hurting human being. She's just not doing this, living this way for fun. Like, she wouldn't just check out on her family for fun because she just wanted to be escaping. She's hurting. There's a deeper story happening there. There's a deeper call. There's a deeper need. I'm so grateful every single day that she is on MAT. I'm so grateful that she was on MAT then. She's still alive to have this awakening, and her awakening came in the form of a small heart attack in 2020, which again was a side effect of, some of her medication, and therefore she was able to start medically working with those things. And now she's healthier than she's ever been, not because of, she's just started doing that, and it wasn't just that, because that medicine didn't just help her, just that. She had to do that and this and this. I mean, recovery is a this and this and this and this kind of program to me. I'm just so grateful to have her. And, MAT saved my life. It has changed, like many lives. I don't think I would be here if I had not taken that proactive step to get my body under control, because I couldn't fight both. I had proved to myself that I couldn't fight both. And sometimes we just got to trust people that they know what's best for them, and just honor that. Honor that. So if there's anybody out there that's feeling ashamed or weak, that you're or not being accepted because you are on medication assisted treatment, please don't do that to yourself. Please honor every moment that, you do what's right for you. You do what's right for you. I love it.
I love that you said that, that you judged and controlled, because I don't think that there's a single person that can say they haven't judged or they haven't tried to control a situation. I can tell you that early in recovery, I judged plenty. Like, it's that, and I don't think that anyone should feel bad about mistakes that they made in the past. It's just, as you hear about this and you hear how it affects somebody else, don't do it again. Like, you don't need to sit and feel guilty at this point, because that doesn't really help anybody. What helps people is not doing it again and changing the way you approach the situation. So I think that that's like a big thing. Sometimes that keeps people in that, the habit of continuing to do it because they feel ashamed they did it, and like they don't want to be ashamed that they might have been wrong, or think about that I would, like, it's like how you make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else, and that's all that needs to happen.
Absolutely.
We got a caller.
Oh, nice.
All right, welcome, caller.
Hi, it's Bridge Guy.
Hey. Yay.
Welcome.
Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to give my 2 cents on Matt, because I feel like there's so many judgments still out there, and a lot of that is just based on, the past experiences people had or had with other people. And I'm sorry, but today is a whole new world. We're so much more advanced and have so much more knowledge that a lot of those judgments aren't even valid today. And it really upsets me when people don't take the time to actually, they form this opinion without any really current knowledge or education on it.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. So true. So true. Gosh, we have come so far. We have come so far in those ways, I remember when there was just one medicine, and that was that, and that's such a valid point. We have come so far.
Well, and it makes me think of like when it's like, dude, if you want to speak on it, then you better know about it. Like,
Yeah.
do your research, do your due diligence if you want to be in a position to speak on it. And to your point, Bridge, then if they did that due diligence, then they would be singing a different tune. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
real. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and oh, sorry, just real quickly, not to be morbid, but the reality is, mad is way better than dying.
Yeah.
Because right now we're losing a person every 7 minutes on an overdose. So
Absolutely.
we don't have time to sit here and judge people. You need to get yourself to, some knowledge, some education. Like, I'm a certified peer recovery specialist, and just that 1 week training, I mean, completely blew my mind. Let alone it opened, I saw a lot of people's minds in that room.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I'm glad you took that class, Bridge, because I see you, girl. You out here. You guys, Bridge is from my area, and she's doing a lot of good for a lot of people. She's got the KISS Recovery 101 podcast.
Outstanding.
And then she's
Outstanding.
also helps put on the Frogtown Radio, the Rise Up Hour on
All right.
Sundays.
Sundays, 8 p.m. or 1 p.m. Central.
It's badass.
Outstanding.
It's badass.
Bridge, I have a
Hold on.
question for you.
It's outstanding.
Of course.
So my question is, do you think that people judge Matt, or they have opinions on Matt because they're on certain pathways and they believe people won't come to their pathway if they accept it?
Oh, that's a good point. It's a very good question.
There's definitely some people that are doing that.
Yeah.
I just think that a lot of people forget that just because something worked for you doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for me. We don't know people's environments they grew up in. We don't know their trauma. We don't know what just happened, maybe a year ago, like life on life's terms. And so whatever you worked for you, that's not going to apply to me. I got a lot more going on, a lot more things maybe already in my system that I've been on for years. We just can't punish people into abstinence. We can't punish people into recovery.
Woo.
Exactly.
Goodness.
And then it's like you're telling them that they don't qualify for recovery because they're taking something that helps them. That's like telling somebody who's on depression medication that they don't deserve recovery until they get off the depression medication. And it's like, bro, I know it does. And it's fucked up because you can't do that.
No.
It's
Like, I gotta
infuriating.
work.
Oh my
I
goodness.
gotta work a program of recovery in order to learn how to fucking cope with my depression, motherfucker. So that's why I need depression meds.
When I first got into recovery, probably the first year or two, I would not even carry a Tylenol bottle in my purse because I was afraid I wasn't allowed to even take Tylenol. Like,
It's
I wouldn't ask for Tylenol when I had a
There's
headache.
people out there that won't use mouthwash because there's alcohol in it. So there's
How
all
retarded
different
is
steps.
that?
Right. Well, and the two words, okay? Harm reduction. So whatever it takes to reduce that harm should always be looked at as a positive thing, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's in shame already. Why would we want to beat them up anymore?
Oh, so true. So true. Because what is addiction is a disease of shame. And I also know that I've heard a lot of people also bring this opinion based on their experience with Matt. And I think one of my greatest assets in my life is I have been every type of Matt client. I've been the one that did exchange completely. I just exchanged, thought that was great. Then I have been, a surface Matt, that I had my family and I was being a productive part of society and then a whole different type of, Matt client when I came into recovery from that relapse, like then I found a whole new way of just changing a relationship with a medication and allowing it to be a tool and not the cure. And, I think that's an amazing asset, for my life. But a lot of people say, well, I was addicted to I was addicted to methadone, and then they make a whole judgment about all of Matt based on their experience, and I think that's a very dangerous thing to do. And I do like what Pamela said too. People often pick a stance, and then if they start to think differently, sometimes they're afraid to speak up. Just like they're, the places you guys are talking about now, like, like maybe they do start to kind of open up, and then they're stuck, like, well, I'm in this group of people,
Right.
So
now I'm going to get shunned.
Yeah.
You
The shun.
don't have psychological safety in your group if you cannot talk about things, and then you're in the wrong group and you have a problem, because safety is a need that everybody has. You need to feel safe.
Good job. Good job.
Yes.
I was listening to a podcast this past week, and they were talking about how people end up in like these extremist groups. They were mostly talking about like political, like far right, far left, and they were talking about exactly what we're talking about right now, where they don't feel accepted by the people that they're in. They feel rejected, they isolate, and then they find these people that they can relate to online or wherever, and they cling on to that because these people will accept me.
Yeah.
It's a herd mentality, man. If you get treated with acceptance, I mean, you look at like gang members, right? Or people that are ex-gang members. It's almost invariably, I don't even know how many I've interviewed on the way out. And it's like almost invariably the same story, like they didn't feel accepted, loved, that they belonged at home, at school, with their neighborhood, but they found that stuff with this group, of gang members. And so they joined up, and then they're living this lifestyle that they just know is just toxic for them. And, now they want out and they're trapped.
Yeah. I see it in the transgender community just as well too. A lot of people are identifying in that way that don't necessarily feel that way, or they start to go through the transition, then they realize, oh wait, that's not quite the identity. But it's like they're into it and they're afraid. Like I stopped going to my own trans support group because it was just so unnerving of saying the right thing and not saying this and saying that. It made so much anxiety, and I see that happening now with a lot of people identifying there. So yeah, that's it's we're all looking for acceptance. Like that seems to be the theme.
Or you have to say that somebody is right that isn't necessarily being right, because if you call them out on being wrong, then like a political thing, you say everything that someone does is right, even if you know that everything they're not doing is right, because you don't like the other side and you think that that's this is better than that. And it's like, you can hold people accountable and call them out and still even vote for them if that's who you think you need to vote for. Like, you can vote, but you can also hold them accountable for things that you think are wrong. And when you say that they're perfect or they're the greatest ever, and then how's that helping anybody by making somebody into some saint that needs to be
I have a question for you, Elsie.
Okay.
So I think that's unfortunate that happened at your transgender support group. And I'm curious, like, when you came to that realization, obviously, I'm assuming like you said, you stepped away. But so what have you found as a replacement to get you that support that you need? Or do you have that kind of like community support within the transgender community?
Well, I tell you, I'm kind of a bit of an outcast because I had this even greater realization with a friend of mine who has his name is Martin John Garcia. He has a podcast called Recovery Yourself, and he was doing a portrait session with me. And that's kind of what he does in his mentoring section. He does a portrait session. He kind of sees your soul, and then you talk about this. Well, he was doing this with me, and he goes, well, how do you want me to introduce you? And I was in my first year of transition. So I was like truly identified. And he said, well, I don't know if I want to say that because I think we should just all be humans. Like, I don't want you to be completely identified with that. And at first I got angry, but I knew his heart. So this was the only thing that made me see it for what it really was. I almost stepped in a trap of I'll be happy when. And a lot of us are in that, that's our culture of I'll be happy when I gain success, when I transition into a different gendered body, I'll be happy. Well, I know that that's not the case. So I started doing a deeper level at looking at, who I was. I went even deeper into myself to see myself as a soul and not just a body. So I was kind of an outcast because I don't do the protests. There's a lot of, I do have opinions about some things. I'm kind of the same belief system of, a lot of fear is being we all know we're in midterms right now in our country, and a lot of people are standing on our backs for votes, so they're creating a lot of fear, and I think this is causing a big pendulum swing of where you're pushing people away and you're also pushing people to a gender identity that we all know that there are people that go through complete transition that regret it. And
Right.
that's a hurtful, harmful thing. So I find support more in my like wellness and spiritual community, and I have great friends like Pamela Topjian is an amazing ally, and she's a cisgendered heterosexual 50-year-old white female who says, well, a lot of us want to be allies, but the culture is so that you don't know what to say, you don't know what not to say, and people want to be allies, but they're scared. Some of them are
Mm.
scared, and that's the way it was in that support group. I was like, I didn't feel comfortable speaking or being myself because I used the word man a lot, and all of a sudden, instead of there being grace, like when we talk about words like addict and clean and sober like that in our community, there was no grace. And I think
Right.
that's a real that's a downfall. Like, we got to give people grace to come to understand those that are wanting to, and the difference in somebody who's truly like Brett. I'll bring Brett up. Brett and I had this amazing interaction together, and Brett was completely open and real and honest with me, and just like he was tonight, that said, hey, I really didn't understand, and I don't know if I do understand, but I want to. And Brett just had this heart that it just immediately, I said, you can ask me anything, like nothing that you ask me is going to offend me, because I know you're not out to hurt me, you're
Right.
trying to understand. Therefore, I am completely open to
Amen.
answer any questions like that. And you can't offend me if you misgender me or you misname me. That's one of the reasons I haven't changed my first name. That's a lot of pressure in the trans community. Dead names and this name. And it's like the recovery. There's so much pressure unnecessarily that we put on each other when we're
Whatever
just trying to
happened
be
to
human
being an
beings.
individual? Like, I'm an
That's that.
individual.
Yes, yes, yes. Just a human in pursuit of happiness. And what does
Yeah.
that mean for me?
So what if I want to keep my name? You know what I mean? Like, I don't
Exactly.
understand people. It's
Exactly.
like you
I
have to fit into some kind of cookie cutter now to be a transgender person.
You do. You
Oh
do.
my
And you can get
gosh.
canceled if you violate the rules that are unspoken.
Wow.
There's unspoken
That's
rules.
Here's the
that's
thing: if we
crazy.
talk about diversity and we talk about how important it is to have diverse teams, and that diversity is comes in all different things, and it's not just with certain labels. There's like all
Yep.
kinds of diversity, diversity of experience.
Yeah.
So to me, when do we, you know, as a world, as a United States, when do we open our mind to we are stronger with diversity? So that doesn't mean that you can have 8 different types of diversity. Like you can only be this color, that color, or this gender, this gender. Like
Yep.
these are the only diversities that are allowed. Like
Yeah.
that doesn't make any sense. Like
It's not real
like
diversity.
Yeah, that's the
like the
opposite
more
of
diversity, the
diversity.
more different types of people, all different
Yes.
types of diversity that
Yeah.
are there, the stronger we are. I mean, we know that even like genetic adaptations, like they're for a reason. They make us stronger as a human race. Like so,
Yes.
like
Yes.
I
I
don't
don't
get it. Like
I don't
how
either.
many types of diversity are we allowing? Like
I know.
where's the law on that? I don't
Only
really.
only as many boxes as we can fit on a piece of paper, but we can't grow past our boxes, you know? Like we can't whatever box we put around ourselves, we can't grow past that until we knock the walls down. And I don't understand really and honestly what's happening right now. It's like don't people see how weak we are as we continue to divide against each other and how other places are just looking at us as we implode from the inside out. I mean, like is nobody else seeing this but us? I don't understand. I don't get it.
Can
A
I say one more
training,
thing?
and they're like, "What's your
Oh,
protocol?"
Bridge.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bridge.
Hey,
Oh,
Bridge.
just I had
Yes.
to chime in. I love that you're on this show and you're sharing your stuff because, right,
Thank
the
you.
opposite of addiction is connection, and so
Yes.
people fear what they don't know, right? That's why I'm loud
Yes.
about my recovery, and I think to your point, it's beautiful because I love that you're open with it, and I say if I don't know something, it's okay not to know, but ask, right? That's how you
Absolutely.
learn.
Yes.
I love
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah,
I
I
went to
couldn't hide it.
a training, and they wanted me to identify, like, and I've never thought about, like I'm Ashley, and they're like, you have to pick a pronoun, and I'm like, I mean, like it's never been. Why do you need to know I'm she her? Like I didn't know what to do because I'm like, I've never thought
I
about
didn't
this.
know what to
Now you
do.
want to like, and it's like, why should somebody have to choose? Why?
I know. I know, and it's the things that we think are going to help. So I remember in the 90s when I went into the military, I identified as, as a lesbian. So in the 90s, we had Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And people just applauded this Don't Ask, Don't Tell situation. And I was in the military at the time, and I was like, no, this is a witch hunt. Because at least you could lie and they were off your back. Now, everybody's like looking and just waiting for you to show some gayness. And then it's like really bad. So it's like we do these things that we think or like I'm giving. We're giving a little bit, but in all reality, that's just another box we put ourselves in. That's just another, what I just can we just be humans? Like, can we just be human beings in pursuit of happiness? Because that, my friends, is supposed to be one of our rights. And all men are created equal, and we do get to have to pursue happiness. Now, what that means to me and what it means to you, but who's trying to tell us where all of that is supposed to go? And I think such a big fear right now that's happening with this big issue of trans children is more coming from adults than children. I mean, I remember being a kid. Yes, I knew that my gender was not right at 4. That's when kids start to become aware of gender. But there were times that, you could play with dolls or play with cars or whatever. But it's like we as adults look over our children because we feel like they're like representations of us. And if they start doing something that looks gay or looks, a little something, we jump on that. When sometimes we just need to back off and kind of just let this human being unfold. I think the one biggest regret that I have in raising my son is that I did not get to know who he was as a human being. I raised him in the condition where he was living out my everything that I thought that I wasn't as, growing up, he was. And so I just wanted him to do all the stuff and to live through him. And I was so like, I couldn't even see that I missed out on getting to know who he was. And so did he. And that's why I look at him in this situation right now, and guilt has no glory, so I don't feel guilty. I continue to keep trying to be a better father, even though he's 23 and living outside my house. I still just want to keep being the best human and father that I can be to him, because he doesn't know who he is. So instead of me giving him or helping him know himself, he kind of got the same situation that I did, just in a different body and a different identity. He doesn't know himself either, and I didn't know myself. And so that's what I regret most, is not seeing who he was, you know? And I hope we're changing in the world, as we go through this now. Some.
Man, I just gotta say, I'm grateful for you, Elsie.
Oh man, I'm grateful for you.
Like I feel like really blessed to be able to be part of this conversation tonight, because I feel like I didn't really get to know you last time. You were poking and prodding and asking us all sorts of stuff about us, but I didn't get to know you. And I'm grateful that I had this opportunity to get to know you.
Oh man, thank you so much. I'm honored to be amongst you. You guys have the greatest hearts, Like I real sees real, and I love each one of your hearts, and how different and the same, and like just how amazing each of you are. I love the dynamic. I love it. I love you all as individuals. It's amazing.
Make my eyes leak, dude.
Man, you're about to get it over here. That's why I got my glasses and the reflection in the way. That's why I keep the reflection.
You keep it?
I keep the reflection.
Turn my head because I feel like it looks weird with the reflection.
It always does. I chase it sometimes, and nope, it hides me when I start leaking a little bit. Because I do, man. I love love. Like, I really do. Like, I never knew anything about love. I didn't know it was possible. I certainly didn't know it was possible to love myself. But, it's amazing when you do begin to love yourself, how much love you see in other people, and how much love you can recognize in the world.
It is the greatest commandment.
It is. It's an amazing, amazing world. Like,
just be love.
Creation is amazing.
Hell yeah.
Amazing. You guys are special. Special, you all are. Special.
You're special too.
You guys
Well,
are.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Man. Good stuff, guys.
Really good stuff.
I love hearing stories that are different, because I think the more stories we hear, just we are able to see people more as people.
Yes.
And
yes.
And we, people fear what they don't know. I mean, that's
they do.
Natural. I don't think that there's, and when you're able to see someone as a human, because you're able to identify in some way with them and their story, then that's where change happens.
It is. And I think that by not allowing people to not know and to I think that's where we build extremism, when we tell people they're not allowed to not know, or not to ask a question, or to not have an opinion. Then we push them away from us, and a lot of people in my community don't understand my stance on that. But why would I ask someone to do something? Why would I ask for grace that I'm not willing to give? You gotta allow someone not to know. That's how we've had a whole conversation here tonight, and there's been so much uncovered, and there's no hate or extremism being born here. There's nothing but love being born here, because we're understanding each other in a safe space to be able to do it. It's
You know,
important.
you may feel like you're an outsider or an outcast now, LC, but I have a feeling as long as you continue doing what you think is right, and you feel a calling to put this content out here, to share of yourself, to get to know and spotlight other people's stories, you're gonna become the trailblazer. You're gonna become the one who's leading the charge for a more open and understanding community, as
I hope
opposed
so.
to, dude, you can't
I
be the
hope so.
only one, bro. You can't
I
be the
know.
only one that's like
I
this.
know. I
You know what I
know.
mean?
I know. I
You're a
know.
leader. Your followers just are a little slow on their walk-in.
Super
They'll catch
slow.
Thank
up.
you.
But guess
Thank you.
what, you
I
guys?
hope
It's
so.
okay to be slow, you know?
It
It's
is.
Oh, it's
the
okay.
tortoise in the hare. Read
Yep.
the tortoise in the hare.
Yeah, get there in your time. Just get there. Just get there. No matter what. I love
Yeah.
Pamela. I
Pamela.
love Pamela.
He is the
Pamela's got,
shit.
listen, Pamela is, and Pamela has this amazing, Pamela wrote this amazing book of her own story, and it's called I Didn't Come This Far to Only Come This Far. And I like Pamela's story too because it also gives a different perspective. And, like this, like just reading people's story, like I'll pick up someone's story and read it or listen to it every single time over, you know, something, I want to hear from people. And, even in my friendship with Pamela, after reading her book, oh my gosh, it's like, we're so much the same. And Pamela had this, a relationship with someone that was struggling with active addiction. And, there was so much, that she didn't understand and then I mean, it was just, like we're all like humans just trying to learn from one another's experience if we allow ourselves. So, I urge everyone to, get to
Check out
know.
Pamela's book.
Yeah, check out Pamela's book. It's on Amazon. I didn't come this far and only come this far. Pamela Topchin. But, like,
Be able
get
to
to know your
identify that
people.
way. Like as humans. Like
Yes.
how do you identify?
Humans.
I'm a human.
I'm a human. That
Yeah.
is that is it. I am a human. Don't lock me in a box. Because if you lock me in a box, something inside of me is going to want to get out of it. So then I'm just going to keep pushing boundaries. And I don't think I got any more to push, y'all. Like, I've pushed them all at this point. Like, there's nothing left for me. I don't think.
It's
You'll find
exhausting,
new
isn't
ones,
it?
you know.
I find
Oh my
always
gosh, it
like
does. It is. It is exhausting. And just trying to hide that stuff, like not being open with who you are and your experience, the shame of that, just, oh, it's such a weight to carry. Such a weight to carry. And I understand, like when we talk trans community, sometimes it's not safe to be who you are. I'm in a situation like that right now, where I work, but I'm working. Like this person is getting to know the human side of me. So at some point we will have a conversation. But, I had to explain to somebody else, if I just come out the gate with this, something that just blows his mind and he's not really he'll make a snap judgment and we'll never get to know each other. And I'm glad I'm getting to know this guy. He's a great guy. He's got an amazing story and he's going through a lot. So I'm glad I'm getting to share space with him. I'm not lying about who I am. I don't have to just come out the gate and, I don't have to lead with this identity. My identity is I'm a human being in the
Right.
process of healing, becoming my best and awesomest self. And I'm getting to know other people that are walking through things too. And, eventually, if it'll come up, and I can almost guarantee you at that time, his entire belief system about other human beings are going to change because he got to know me as a human first, not a transgender person.
Right. You know, you said something earlier, LC, that really, I loved it. It was like quote worthy for sure, but you said that you started to view yourself as a soul rather than a body.
Yeah.
And that was a big part of what helped you in your transition to cultivate self-love, right?
Yes.
And I
Yes.
loved that when you said that, because that's what we all are, you know. It's
That's
like,
it.
that's the what's good for your spirit, right? And
Yeah.
then I just think it's great that you did that, because then it's like it totally simplified it, right? Instead of making it all complicated,
Yes.
you're just like, that wasn't good for my soul.
Yep.
This is good for my soul. And if it makes my soul feel whole, you know.
That's it. Yeah, and that's exactly right. And had my friend Martin never like questioned me, and let's remember when he questioned me, I was pissed. I was like, you don't understand what it's like, like I was hanging on to this identity, and had he never challenged me, that's why our challenges and the things that make us uncomfortable are often our greatest assets, because had I not really started contemplating that question, even though I had done that in my recovery, I had found what was good for my soul. I almost slipped in the trap of identity again. I almost slipped in that I'll be happy and whole when I do something to my body. When, man, I'm a soul traveling in a body. I'm not a body, that has a soul in it. I am a soul traveling in this body through this time and space, and this is my path. This is my path. For whatever reason, I'm supposed to be, supposed to have gone through childhood trauma. I'm supposed to have, had a 22-year active addiction. I'm supposed to have been, I'm supposed to have been hurt. I'm supposed to have been raped. I'm supposed to have been beaten. I'm supposed to have been all those things so that I can be this whole soul today. And, ask the question, okay, instead of why me, why me? Why me? Well, this is why. This is why. I'm grateful. I'm grateful.
Something
I
that
just think that
they,
God uses broken vessels. The
Amen.
cracks, the cracks are where the light gets in,
That's exactly right.
or how the light gets out.
That's
there's something that you said
thought
that's so
worthy.
beautiful too, like that we kind of missed, is you were talking about somebody at work, and you were saying that he wasn't ready to know you, and the amount of empathy that is in you, because you could say I should be able to be whoever I want to be, and you would be absolutely right, but you are giving him the ability to know you before, because he's not ready to know everything
Right.
yet, so you're giving him the time and the respect to be able to say, I believe that he will eventually have the ability to accept me. I just need to let him know who I am, and
Yeah.
that's a, that's an amazing outlook on it, and
Yeah.
there's
Thank you.
amazing amounts of good things that can come from that, because you don't have to. You don't have. You should be able to be exactly who you are wherever you show up, but by giving
Yeah.
somebody the ability to reach that, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
a lot
And
of people
yeah.
are not
And
given that, so they'll tell us, well, you have to accept me in it. We
right.
should, but
Right. 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 And I think that that's a big, problem for
Awesome.
us right now is when we push and say this is what you've got to do, like just in doing that, you just automatically recoil and put defenses up. And that's not how we connect soul to soul. And this man has just lost his mother. He lost his fiance to COVID. I mean, he's a broken man. His body's breaking down on him from grief. When when he finally like gets a chance to, you know this is he's because he's got other views on other things of diversity as well. It's not just my that community, it's this community and that community, but I can see the beauty in him. Like I can see the God within him, and I know that these aren't even his belief systems. Like these beliefs, like who does this belong to? Those beliefs that he has, they don't belong to him. They've come down through generations and
Programming.
generations. Exactly. It's a condition, and I see the human, and we have connected on a level that, we've been able to talk about his and I know in just the 2 weeks we've been working together, he has and we're painting a house. Like, we're not doing like therapy work, but we're doing therapy work. Like, he's
Mm,
getting some amazing insight because he's not being told, well, you should just get another girlfriend and get over this. I'm like, no, man, you got to heal from this, in that you can be a whole human there, And he says, well, I like the way you put stuff. See, that's human to human. Now, he wouldn't get that if he knew my label. He wouldn't even give me that time
right.
if he knew my label. And if I felt like somebody told me, well, you should say something, I'm like, why? Like, why say something to someone who's not ready to receive it? Like, you miss so much I don't want to shove something down his throat. What kind of work environment is that going to be? We're not going to be laughing and cutting up and having fun. It's going to be very rigid, very uncomfortable. I may have to look, for my safety. I'm never going to relax. No. But I'm also not hiding it. Like, the point is, I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, so I get it on both sides, and that's okay because they're not ready to receive what it is that I have to give either. But it scares me when people get so identified with those labels because they don't hold your happiness. In fact, they hold back your happiness. And so we can
It's that
let those go.
stigmatizing.
It is.
Yeah.
Just like that, I'm an addict, you know. I can't say that at a certain point. Like, I had to stop saying that because I was prophesying that to myself, and I couldn't grow outside of that box. And it was
Right.
time for me to stop saying that identity. So it's the same to me. We're all going through the same. We're all going through transition. Every one of us. We just don't know it
Yeah,
always.
Pamela
Get it
made a
together.
comment earlier. She put that pretty astutely. Let's see.
Hmm.
She said recovery is a type of transition as well. Growth inside and out is a transition. It's a process. We aren't supposed to stay in one chapter of our lives. We're meant to live, grow, and evolve.
Yes, that's my soul sister there.
And I'm
That's one
super
mentor.
grateful for that, man, because I want to, I don't know, like, I spent so much of my life not feeling any like hope or like
Yeah.
looking forward like to anything. And now it's like, I'm, looking forward with a kind of like almost like curiosity. Like I'm
Mm.
open to receive what's next, like,
Oh,
and I don't pretend to know
that's
what it
good.
is. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
uh, I just
That's nice,
walk and I just walk the walk.
man.
See where it
That
leads.
that's awesome. That's gonna be our episode title right there. Open to
Mm,
receive what's next.
amen,
That's
Growth
gonna
dude.
be
mindset.
it.
Boom.
Yes. Oh, yes. It's a lifesaver. It's a lifesaver.
Yeah.
All right,
Oh,
guys, are we ready to
it's
wrap
been
things
amazing.
up? I know Adam's
Yeah.
got to
Yeah.
go. It's
I
getting kind
gotta
of
go to
late.
work in the morning.
Me
Me
too,
too.
man.
I've enjoyed this though. This fills my
Oh, dark.
soul.
Oh, dark 30.
Right. Yeah. Slinging paint before the sun comes up. Hey,
Yes, sir.
this has been amazing. I leave here full tonight. I really
Same.
am overflowing. Thank you
Same.
guys so much. Thank you.
Thank you for
And
being here.
we didn't even
Thank
put it
you.
up there, but
Yes, thank you.
there's LC's
Hey.
logo. Be sure to check out LC's show, which also now broadcasts live on the Recovery Revolution
That's
page.
right.
Woo.
That's
That's
what's up.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
Every Saturday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Come see us.
Collaborators.
That's
That's
right. That's
right.
right.
Gotta love it.
And Jason
Thanks,
has
guys.
his own podcast as well.
Way out.
Yeah, the Whale
Yeah.
Podcast. Me and my brother Charles Lavour. He's the
Let's see.
creator. We uh, we host powerful recovery stories with different individuals from all walks of life and all pathways. We lift and try to spotlight those things, as many things we can learn and put out there. And then we also do recovery power topics sometimes in episodes where we unpack specific topics that people might really feel like they need to learn more about in recovery. So check us out. And then on Spotify, we got the Way Out playlist. That's a curated list of songs that symbolize recovery to our amazing guests.
Nice.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
And then I also have my own show that I do as well,
he
Recovery
does.
Survey.
Amazing.
Check that out. Little bite-sized pieces of recovery, one episode a week. Drops on Wednesday mornings, so add that to the list as well. We also release this broadcast, this live stream, in podcast form as well. So if you want to take us on the road, you want to listen to us in your earbuds, and you can't watch the video, you can look up the audio version of every single live stream that we do. Just search Recovery Revolution Live on your favorite podcast player. Like and follow, subscribe, all that fun stuff on YouTube if you watch us over there. Do we have any other announcements? I think that's it.
Ashley Grimes made the Power 100 top 100 healthcare providers in the state of Florida. Congratulations, Ashley.
Congratulations. You deserve that.
She is a pioneer, and she is bringing better resources to the community out there in Florida. We love you, Ashley.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yay, Ashley.
I think she's blushing.
She definitely is. I'm not gonna put her on blast though.
Love you, Ashley.
Sorry, I'm like that though.
All right, well, Elsie, thank you again for coming on the show tonight. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank y'all.
I always feel so uplifted, and every time I'm around you and I have a conversation, man, I just leave just feeling like I'm on cloud nine, man. So I'm so grateful that you came on tonight.
Man, I'm gonna cry when this is over. I'm gonna just cry when this is over.
It was very moving, bro. It was very moving to learn your story and to see how far you've come and the way that you really are able to now use your lived experience to touch so many lives. It's very heartwarming, dude. And I got nothing but love for you, bro.
Right back at y'all. Thank y'all so much. It's been amazing.
Everybody have a good night. We will see you next Thursday. And remember, progress, not perfection.
Amen.
Bye.